hit me to protect his mistress. Then he looked me in the eye and said, "Without me, you are nothing." That was the night my marriage ended.
I left with a bruise on my face and $3,000 to my name.
I rebuilt myself. I climbed the corporate ladder. I found a love that didn't hurt. I built an empire out of the ashes he left behind.
5 years later, the man who threw me out showed up at my office, homeless, desperate, begging on his knees in the lobby of the company I now run.
They tried to keep me in the dark, but I was built for the spotlight. And that is why our new strategy will revolutionize the market.
The sharp ringing in Elena's ears wasn't just from the impact. It was the sound of her reality shattering. She stumbled back against the hallway wall, her palm cupping the throbbing warmth spreading across her cheekbone. Yet, the physical pain paled in comparison to the frigid shock that gripped her chest. Her husband of 7 years, Marcus, stood in the center of their living room, his arms still half raised, his posture radiating a lethal fury she had never witnessed. Behind him stood Serena, the woman he'd been having an affair with for 6 months, offering a performance of tearful victimhood in the home Elena paid for. The room tilted. Marcus had hit her. It wasn't an accidental collision or a flailing gesture in the heat of an argument. It was a deliberate violent strike meant to silence her and defend his mistress. Elena tasted the metallic tang of blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. Her knees threatened to buckle. This surreal nightmare couldn't be her life. This couldn't be the man she had supported through his endless string of failed business ventures, the man she had loved since university. "You need to leave," Marcus said, his voice terrifyingly devoid of emotion. He didn't even look at Elena. His concern was entirely focused on Serena, who was escalating her theatrical sobbing. "Serena is upset, and you're making everything worse." The absurdity of his statement hit harder than his fist. Elena pressed her fingers against the plaster of the wall to ground herself. She refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Only 3 hours earlier, she had returned early from an exhausting nursing shift, craving quiet. Instead, she found Serena on her sofa, wearing Elena's silk robe and drinking from Elena's favorite mug. The confrontation had begun calmly. Elena had simply asked the stranger to leave. Serena had laughed in her face, claiming a right to be there. That's when Marcus appeared, fresh from the shower, and the true horror began. He offered no apology, only defense for Serena. When Elena raised her voice, demanding respect in her own sanctuary, Serena turned on the waterworks, and Marcus snapped. "Did you hear me?" Marcus's voice sliced through her daze. "Get out of this house." Elena found her voice, though it trembled. "This is my house too. I've paid the mortgage for the last 3 years while you played entrepreneur." His expression darkened into something venomous. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a menacing hiss. "Everything you have is because of me. This house is in my name. Your car is in my name. Without me, Elena, you are nothing. You should be grateful I married you." Each lie was calculated to dismantle her self-worth. She had heard versions of this speech before, but never delivered with such absolute, hateful conviction. She glanced at Serena, who had stopped crying and was watching with sly satisfaction. This intruder was comfortable witnessing Elena's humiliation. Something inside Elena calcified. The hurt transmuted into cold resolve. She straightened her spine, meeting Marcus's eyes. "You're right," she said quietly. "I should leave." Her sudden compliance threw him off balance. He blinked, expecting a fight, expecting her to crumble. Elena walked past him, careful to avoid contact, and ascended the stairs. Her hands shook violently on the banister. Behind her, she heard Serena's sugary voice asking Marcus if he wanted dinner. The casual domesticity sickened her. In their bedroom, Elena moved with robotic efficiency. She dragged a suitcase from the closet and threw in essentials: clothing, toiletries, her laptop. She emptied her small personal safe, taking her birth certificate, passport, and the $3,000 hidden cash she had been saving for emergencies. This was an emergency. She turned the framed wedding photos face down on the dresser. 7 years of memories now felt like evidence of a long con. 20 minutes later, she walked downstairs. Marcus and Serena were in the kitchen. She saw them embracing through the doorway. Elena didn't announce her departure. She simply walked out the front door into the cool evening air. Her car, bought with her own salary despite Marcus's lies, sat in the driveway. She threw her suitcase in the trunk, climbed into the driver's seat, and locked the doors. The bruise on her face was already darkening in the rearview mirror, a purple mark of the moment she chose herself. Elena drove aimlessly for 45 minutes before the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a crushing wave of devastation. She pulled into a brightly lit supermarket parking lot, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The tears finally broke free, hot and blinding. She allowed herself exactly 10 minutes of racking sobs, watching the digital clock on the dashboard. When the time was up, she wiped her face with her sleeve, steadied her breathing, and dialed. Gabriella answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Elle? It's midnight. What's wrong?" Elena's voice cracked. "I need somewhere to sleep." Gabriella was instantly alert. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm in a parking lot. I'm safe now. I left Marcus. For good. Get here. Nah. I'm unlocking the door." Gabriella lived in a vibrant, cluttered apartment across the city. When Elena arrived, her friend took one look at the swelling bruise on her cheek and gasped. A string of colorful curses erupted from Gabriella as she pulled Elena inside, wrapping her in a fierce embrace. Elena had held herself together through sheer willpower during the drive, but in the safety of her oldest friend's arms, she fragmented again. Gabriella guided her to the plush velvet sofa, disappearing into the kitchen and returning with chamomile tea and a bag of frozen peas wrapped in a dish towel. "For your face," she said gently, pressing the cold pack to Elena's cheek. "Tell me." Elena recounted the entire sordid evening, finding Serena in the robe, Marcus's chilling defense, the physical assault, and his delusional claims of ownership over her life. Gabriella listened without interruption, her expression hardening into fury. When Elena finished, Gabriella set her mug down with deliberate precision. "Elena, listen to me. That was assault. We need to document this. We should go to the ER, get a report on file." Elena shook her head weakly. "No police. I just want it to be over. I never want to see his face again. I just want out. He hit you. He cannot get away with that. He won't get the chance to do it again," Elena said, her voice gaining strength. "That door is soldered shut. I am never going back. Not if he begs on his knees." Gabriella studied her friend, recognizing the adamantine resolve in her eyes. "Okay. But we are taking high-resolution photos of that bruise right now for your records. And you are staying here as long as you need. My couch is yours." That night, Elena lay awake in the unfamiliar living room. Her phone buzzed incessantly with calls and texts from Marcus. She blocked his number after glancing at a preview text accusing her of being dramatic and abandoning her duties. Not a single word of apology. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust motes and the reality of her situation. The bruise had darkened to an ugly violet. She called in sick to the hospital. She couldn't treat patients while wearing the evidence of domestic violence. Gabriella had already left for her marketing job, leaving a note promising dinner and strategy. Elena sat at the small kitchen table with coffee and her laptop. Survival mode kicked in. She couldn't live on Gabriella's couch forever. She needed a lawyer. The secret savings account was no longer an emergency fund. It was her freedom fund. She began researching divorce attorneys specializing in difficult separation cases. The financial reality was daunting. Marcus had spoken the truth about the house deed, even if he lied about who paid for it. She might have to walk away with nothing but her personal items just to escape quickly. The thought was infuriating, but freedom was worth the price. Her phone rang from an unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "We need to discuss your irrational behavior last night," Marcus's voice said smoothly, as if he hadn't assaulted her hours prior. He was using someone else's phone. Elena hung up and blocked that number too. The audacity of the man was staggering. He would never change. He would never see her as a human being deserving of respect. By the time Gabriella returned home that evening, Elena had a plan sketched out. "I'm looking for studio apartments," she told her friend. "I can afford something small if I budget tightly. I need my own space to rebuild." Gabriella sat opposite her. "Or," she countered, "you could stay here. Save your deposit money. My lease is up in 2 months, and the building has a 2-bedroom unit opening up. We could move in together. Split the rent, share the load." Elena felt fresh tears prick her eyes. Gabby, I can't ask you to uproot your life for my mess. You aren't asking. I'm insisting. We've had each other's back since 10th grade. Let me have yours now. They looked at the listing that night. It was perfect, bright, clean, and in a safe neighborhood near Elena's hospital. It felt like a genuine fresh start. For the first time in 24 hours, Elena felt a flicker of hope piercing the gloom. The following weeks were a blur of logistical dismantling. Elena secured a bulldog of a divorce lawyer who immediately filed papers. Marcus, served with the documents, oscillated between ignoring them and sending furious emails through mutual acquaintances, all of which Elena forwarded unread to her attorney. She moved her remaining belongings out of the marital home while Marcus was away on a business trip with Serena. Elena and Gabriella moved into the new 2-bedroom apartment on a crisp autumn day. They painted Elena's room a soothing sage green, a stark contrast to the beige existence she'd left behind. She bought a new bed, new linens, new everything. She refused to bring any tainted energy into this sanctuary. 3 months later, Elena stood before a full-length mirror in her new bedroom, adjusting the blazer of a sharp navy suit. The woman staring back was changed. The bruise was long gone, but a new steadfastness resided in her eyes. Today was her first day at Ethelred Biosciences, a leading medical research firm in the city. She had applied on a whim, feeling burnt out by hospital nursing and wanting a complete severance from her past life. The interview process had been surprisingly smooth. The hiring managers were impressed by her clinical experience and her ability to translate complex medical jargon into accessible language. They had offered her a role as a clinical trial coordinator, with a significant salary increase and better hours than the hospital. No one at Ethelred knew about Marcus, the affair, or the assault. Here, she wasn't a victim or a scorned wife. She was Elena Vance, a skilled professional with a clean slate. Gabriella had already left for work but had taped a note to the coffee maker. Go get him, Tiger. You're going to crush it. Celebratory tacos tonight. Elena smiled, tucking the note into her pocket like a talisman. The Ethelred building was an intimidating structure of glass and steel in the financial district. Elena arrived early, sitting in her car to practice deep breathing exercises. She reminded herself that she had already survived the worst night of her life. A new job orientation was nothing in comparison. The lobby was cavernous and quiet. A receptionist directed her to the 7th floor, where she was greeted by Dr. Eris Thorne, the head of the clinical operations department. Dr. Thorne was a formidable woman in her 50s with a sleek silver bob and an air of no-nonsense intelligence. Welcome aboard, Elena, Dr. Thorne said, offering a firm handshake. We're very glad to have your patient-facing perspective here. Too often in research, we get bogged down in data and forget the human element at the end of the trial pipeline. The morning was an avalanche of information, compliance training, protocol reviews, and endless acronyms. Elena met her team, including Sarah, a bubbly coordinator who immediately took Elena under her wing. It feels like drowning at first, Sarah whispered conspiratorially during a coffee break. But Dr. Thorne is great. She actually believes in work-life balance, which is practically unheard of in this industry. At lunch in the expansive company cafeteria, Elena sat with Sarah and a few other colleagues. The conversation was light and blessedly normal. Netflix recommendations, weekend plans, complaints about city traffic. Nobody probed for personal tragedies. It was refreshing to just exist as a normal person. In the afternoon, Elena shadowed Sarah on a conference call with a research site in Europe. Watching Sarah navigate the complexities of international protocols gave Elena a glimpse of the challenges ahead. It was demanding work, requiring meticulous attention to detail, but it felt vital. These trials were the pathway to new cures. By 5:30 p.m., Elena's brain felt saturated, but she wasn't exhausted in the soul-deep way she used to feel coming home to Marcus's sullen demands. This felt like good, honest fatigue. That evening, over a mountain of tacos, Elena recounted every detail to Gabriella. It was amazing, Gab. Dr. Thorne is brilliant but kind. The team seems supportive. I feel capable. Like I'm finally using my brain for something other than managing Marcus's ego. That's because you are brilliant, Gabriella said, raising a margarita glass. To Elena Vance, and the start of her empire. As Elena clinked her glass against her friends, she realized that for the first entire day in months, the shadow of Marcus hadn't darkened her thoughts once. She was building something new, brick by brick, on a foundation of her own making. Dr. Thorne mentioned you were going through a difficult divorce. I don't want to pry, but if you ever need to vent to someone outside the situation, I'm a good listener. The sincerity in his voice disarmed her defenses. She hadn't intended to share, but the music, the sunset, and his genuine kindness loosened the knot in her chest. It wasn't just difficult, Elena began quietly, keeping her eyes on a distant street lamp. It was destructive. Marcus wasn't just a bad husband. He was controlling. He made me feel small so he could feel big. And in the end, when I caught him cheating, he became violent. She felt Elias stiffen beside her. He hurt you physically? His voice was low, edged with sudden ice. Once. That was enough. I left that night. She finally looked at him, fearing pity or discomfort. Instead, she saw profound sorrow and anger in his dark eyes. Elena, I am so incredibly sorry. No one deserves that. It takes immense courage to walk away from something like that with nothing but the clothes on your back. I'm still rebuilding, she admitted. Sometimes I still feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. For someone to tell me I'm useless again. Elias reached out, tentatively covering her hand with his warm, firm palm. I look at you, and I see one of the most competent, intelligent, and resilient people I know. Anyone who made you feel otherwise is a fool and a coward. Tears pricked her eyes, but they weren't sad tears. They were tears of relief at being truly seen. Thank you for saying that. I mean every word. He squeezed her hand gently. You are safe now, Elena. You've built a fortress of success around yourself. No one is getting in unless you invite them. They stayed for the final set, his hand remaining over hers. It wasn't an overt romantic gesture, but a steady anchoring presence. On the drive home, the silence was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. When he walked her to her apartment building door, he didn't try to kiss her. He simply hugged her, a solid, respectful embrace that lasted perhaps a second longer than a typical friendly hug. Thank you for today, she whispered against his shoulder. Any time, he murmured. Sleep well, Elena. Upstairs, Gabriella was waiting, eyebrows raised suggestively over a bowl of popcorn. Well, tell me everything about the non-date. Elena smiled, a genuine deep-down smile that reached her eyes. He's good, Gab. He's really, really good. And he knows. Knows what? About Marcus. About the violence. I told him. Gabriella stopped chewing. And he didn't flinch. He didn't pity me. He just told me I was brave and safe. Gabriella let out a long breath. Okay then. That's a man worth knowing. Elena went to bed that night feeling a shift in the tectonic plates of her life. She had opened a locked door in her heart, just a crack, and the world hadn't ended. Instead, a little more light had gotten in. Over the next 4 months, the line between friendship and romance blurred, then vanished entirely. Elena and Elias began dating seriously, though discreetly at first due to work. Elena found herself falling in love with a man who was the antithesis of Marcus. Elias was secure, encouraging, and deeply kind. He celebrated her successes without jealousy and supported her ambitions without condescension. He introduced her to his golden retriever, Buster, a goofy creature who immediately adopted Elena as a second primary source of belly rubs. They spent weekend hiking with the dog, exploring new restaurants, and talking for hours about everything from corporate ethics to childhood dreams. Elena's divorce was finally dragging toward a conclusion. Marcus, realizing there was no money to squeeze out of her and that she wasn't coming back, had largely stopped fighting, though he periodically sent whining emails blaming her for ruining his life. Elena filed them away without emotion. A year after they had first met in that boardroom, Elias took Elena back to Riverfront Park, the site of their first non-date. It was snowy now, the park quiet and dusted in white. Near the frozen riverbank, with Buster happily sniffing nearby trees, Elias stopped and took both of Elena's gloved hands in his. Elena, he began, his breath pluming in the cold air. This past year with you has been the best of my life. Watching you reclaim your joy, seeing your brilliance in action, just being near you, it's everything. I love you. I want to build a future with you. A real partnership, between equals. He knelt in the snow, pulling a simple, elegant platinum ring from his coat pocket. Elena Vance, Will you marry me? Elena didn't hesitate. The fear that had once defined her relationships was gone, replaced by a calm certainty. Yes, she whispered, pulling him up to kiss him. Yes, absolutely. They planned a small, intimate wedding for the following June, to be held in the garden of a historic inn just outside the city. They wanted it to be a celebration of genuine connection, with only their closest friends and family present. Gabriella was, naturally, the maid of honor. As the wedding date approached, an uneasy feeling settled in Elena's stomach. It wasn't cold feet about Elias. It was a nagging worry about Marcus. She hadn't told him she was remarrying, but news traveled in strange ways. 3 days before the wedding, Elena was leaving Ethelred late in the evening after finalizing the logistics for the national rollout of her community program. As she walked toward the parking garage, a figure emerged from the shadows near the entrance. It was Marcus. He looked awful, gaunt, unshaven, his clothes expensive but rumpled. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, manic energy. "Elena!" he croaked, stepping into her path. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from love, but from primal fight-or-flight response. She stopped 10 feet away, gripping her keys like a weapon. "What are you doing here, Marcus? You're trespassing." "I heard," he said, ignoring her question. "You're getting married. To the CEO. You certainly traded up, didn't you? My life is none of your concern. Move out of my way." "Elena, please. Serena left me. The business is under. I'm losing the condo. I have nothing." He took a stumbling step toward her. "I made a mistake. We were good together once. You loved me. You owe me another chance before you throw it all away for some rich suit." The sheer delusion of him took her breath away. He still believed she owed him something. He still believed he owned her past. Elena straightened up, channeling every ounce of the strength she had built over the last 2 years. "I owe you absolutely nothing," she said, her voice icy and unwavering. "You destroyed our marriage the moment you chose to protect your mistress instead of your wife. You forfeited any claim on me when you raised your hand to me. I was stressed. It was one time. It was the end," she stated flatly. "Look at me, Marcus. Really look at me. Do you see the scared little woman who paid your bills and tolerated your disrespect? She doesn't exist anymore. I killed her to survive you." She took a step forward, and to her grim satisfaction, Marcus flinched back. "I am marrying a good man who knows how to love respectfully. You are a ghost from a painful past. Go away, Marcus. If you ever approach me again, I will have you arrested. This is the last time we will ever speak." She sidestepped him and walked to her car without looking back. She felt his eyes on her, but they held no power anymore. As she drove out of the garage, her hands were shaking, but her spirit felt unbreakable. The final shackle had been snapped. The wedding day was perfect. A warm June afternoon filled with the scent of blooming roses and jasmine. Elena walked down the aisle toward Elias, feeling not a trace of the anxiety that had marred her first wedding day. This wasn't a performance. It was a grounding. They exchanged vows they had written themselves. Elias promised to be her partner in all things, to respect her autonomy, and to always be her safe harbor. Elena promised to trust him with her whole heart, to never shrink herself to fit someone else's comfort, and to love him fiercely and equally. When they kissed at the altar, the small crowd cheered, and Elena felt a profound sense of arrival. She was home. The reception was a joyful blur of dancing, champagne, and laughter. Gabriella gave a tearful, hilarious toast about how Elias had better treat Elena like royalty or face her wrath. Elena danced with Elias under strings of bistro lights, feeling utterly cherished. "You look incredibly happy, Mrs. Vance," Elias murmured into her hair. "I am," she replied. "I really truly am." Life settled into a beautiful rhythm. They moved into a slightly larger house with a big backyard for Buster. Elena continued to thrive at Ethelred, her community program gaining national attention. Marriage to Elias was everything her previous marriage hadn't been. Supportive, communicative, and peaceful. 6 months after the wedding, Elena was in her office at Ethelred, reviewing budget proposals, when Sarah knocked on her door, looking uncomfortable. "Elena, there's a situation in the lobby," Sarah said quietly. "Security called. It's your ex-husband, Marcus." Elena froze. The pen slipped from her fingers. "What is he doing here?" Apparently, He's demanding to see you. He's making a scene. He's crying. Elena. He's telling the receptionist he's destitute and you're the only one who can help him. A cold fury washed over Elena. How dare he bring his chaos into her professional sanctuary? How dare he try to weaponize her empathy after everything he had done? Tell security to remove him, Elena said, her voice hard. They tried. He's refusing to leave. He's threatening a sit-in until you come down. Elena stood up, smoothing her skirt. Fine. I'll deal with it. Do you want me to call Elias? He's in a meeting on the 12th floor. No. I don't need Elias for this. I need to do this myself. Elena took the elevator down to the lobby. The vast marble space was echoing with the sound of Marcus's pathetic pleading. He was at the reception desk, looking even more disheveled than the last time she saw him. A security guard was trying to reason with him. When Marcus saw Elena emerge from the elevator, his face crumpled in relief. Elena! Thank God. Please, you have to help me. Elena stopped 10 feet away, conscious of the reception staff and a few passing clients watching the spectacle. Marcus, you are trespassing in my place of employment. Leave now. He dropped to his knees right there on the polished floor. Please. I'm being evicted today. I have nowhere to go. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Just alone, Elena. A few thousand to get me back on my feet. You're rich now. It's nothing to you. The sight of him kneeling, begging, filled her with repulsive pity. This was the man who used to tell her she was nothing without him. Get up, she commanded, her voice low and steely. You are embarrassing yourself. Help me, Elena. For old time's sake. There are no old times, she said clearly so everyone could hear. You forfeited any right to my help when you abused me and cheated on me. Your current situation is the result of your own choices. I am not your safety net. She turned to the head of security, who was standing nearby. Mr. Henderson, this man is harassing me. Please escort him off the premises immediately. If he returns, call the police and file trespassing charges. Elena, please. Marcus wailed as 2 guards grasped his arms and hauled him to his feet. Elena didn't spare him another glance. She turned and walked back toward the elevators, her back rigid. She heard the lobby doors whoosh open and closed, silencing his pleas. Back in the safety of the elevator, she leaned against the wall and took a deep, shuddering breath. She wasn't scared. She was furious, yes, but underneath the anger was a profound sense of finality. He was truly, completely gone from her internal world. He was just a sad stranger now. When she returned to her office, her phone was ringing. It was Elias. Sarah just told me. Are you all right? I'm coming down. Are you okay, honey? Elena looked out her window at the city below. I'm fine, Elias. Better than fine. I just closed the last chapter of a very bad book. 5 years after the night she fled her home with a bruise on her face and $3,000 to her name, Elena sat on the expansive wooden deck of the home she shared with Elias. The autumn air was crisp, and the trees surrounding their property were ablaze with red and gold. Buster, now a distinguished older gentleman with a frosted muzzle, dozed at her feet beside Rusty, a younger chaotic Irish setter they had adopted 2 years ago. Elena held a steaming mug of coffee, reflecting on the trajectory of her life. It felt like looking back at a different person's history. Her career at Ethelred had soared. The community outreach program she designed was now a national model used by major pharmaceutical companies across the country. 2 years ago, with Elias's full encouragement, she had gone back to university part-time to earn an MBA, graduating at the top of her class. Just last month, she had been promoted to Vice President of Corporate Responsibility and Patient Advocacy. She was a leader in her field, respected for her intellect and her unwavering ethical compass. Gabriella was still her rock, now happily married to a pediatrician named David. The 2 couples had regular dinner dates that usually ended in raucous laughter and board games. And Elias. Her partnership with him was the cornerstone of her happiness. It wasn't the fiery dramatic romance of movies. It was something far better. A steady, enduring flame of mutual respect, shared values, and deep affection. They had navigated job stresses, family illnesses, and the everyday challenges of life without ever making each other feel small. Elias stepped out onto the deck, wrapping a cardigan around her shoulders before kissing the top of her head. "Penny for your thoughts, Madam VP?" He sat in the Adirondack chair beside her, nursing his own coffee. Elena smiled, leaning back. I was just thinking about the 5-year anniversary coming up next week. Elias nodded silently. They both knew which anniversary she meant. Not their wedding, but her escape. It feels like a lifetime ago, she said softly. Sometimes I hardly recognize the woman who got in that car that night. She was so terrified. So broken. She was incredibly brave, Elias corrected gently. I recognize her every day in the way you tackle challenges, in the way you stand up for people who don't have a voice. That bravery never left you, Elena. It just changed form. She turned to look at him, her heart swelling with gratitude, not just for him but for herself. For a long time, I thought my story was about surviving Marcus. About escaping him. And now I know it wasn't about him at all. It was about me finding myself. It was about realizing that I was worth saving, and then doing the hard work to build a life deserving of me. I didn't just survive, Elias. I thrived. He reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing the platinum band on her finger. You certainly did. And I am the luckiest man alive to get to witness it. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun rose higher, illuminating the vibrant colors of the trees. The dog stirred, sniffing the air for squirrels. Marcus was a distant memory, a cautionary tale reduced to ashes. Elena had forged a life of purpose, integrity, and love out of the wreckage of her past. She knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that no matter what challenges the future held, she would never again lose herself. She was Elena Vance, whole, healed, and entirely free. And the view from where she stood was spectacular. If you like the story, please subscribe and hit the like button to watch more interesting stories. Thanks for watching.